2024 at 6:04 p.m. We're convened today as the Provo City School District Board of Education, and we're meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah. We're going to begin our business meeting this evening with a roll call, and we'll start with Melanie Hall this time.
Melanie Hall, board member.
Gina Hales, board member.
Meg Van Wagenen, board member.
Wendy Dow, superintendent.
Rebecca Nielsen, board president.
Jennifer Partridge, vice president.
Terry McCabe, board member.
Lisa Boyce, board member.
Devin Daly, business administrator.
Thank you so much. And is there a motion to convene our business meeting this evening?
I move that we convene our business.
Oh, do we need to also, our student board members announce?
I apologize. Do you guys want to check in?
Monica Tuoona, student board member.
Hutch Fallis, student board member.
Thank you so much. And welcome to everyone else who is here with us online or in person tonight. We're happy to have you here. Is there now a motion to convene our business meeting, which we already have a motion by board member Partridge? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by board member Hales. We are now in our business meeting. We're going to start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Jared Seitz, who is our assistant superintendent over elementary education.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's important.
Thank you so much, Jared.
You can calm down.
All right. Well, I apologize for not having a minute to give warning about this, but we are going to go ahead and have our public input section now. And what I wanted to be able to give warning about was that if you are here to give public input tonight, we actually need you to fill out a form that's here on this little table to my right, your left. If you would fill that out completely and hand it to our secretary, Bonnie Totkus, and then she'll get that up to us, and then we'll be able to take public input from there. Is there anybody tonight interested in giving input? Public input tonight.
Sorry, that's me.
It's in stereo. Okay, if you want to go ahead and fill out the form. Okay, thank you so much. And should we discuss something in the meantime, or should we go ahead and just wait?
Can just chill.
Okay, we'll just wait for a minute.
Policies next, right?
Yeah. Right.
Bonnie. Are you okay if I take over the screen?
I hope you didn't feel attacked about the large.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it has gotten better, but I think you're right. It's that most of them have construction based.
Oh, then that's fine. Then that's just fine. Yeah,
break.
that's just fine.
And it has to be.
It just helps that I don't have to say next slide.
We've got
Sweet.
I was grateful that we had this conversation. Okay. So didn't have to vote tonight because I thought we had to decide right now, and I was like, thank you. To make sure they can answer. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Did you get your water? So, it's cute. I just noticed. Are you being real? Yeah. Like 12 hours late or 8 hours late. Okay, fine. You're going to be okay. I never do it, but I have 2 kids, and that's the only thing they post on. So it's the only way I see what they're up to. It's like 10 I can see the baby. Look over here. Very nice. Thanks. See? There's the look at that baby. Gosh, so cute. This is how I see my granddaughter every day. So,
Thank you so much. All right. We are going to hear first from Camille Jones, And Camille, if you wouldn't mind coming up here to the microphone to address the board. And before you start, if you would just state your name and the elementary school boundary within which you live here in the Provo district, and then we'll be happy to give you 3 minutes to address the board.
Hi, my name is Camille Jones, and my children go to Canyon Crest.
Yeah, there you
Hear
go.
me
Perfect.
okay?
Yep, perfect. Thank
Better?
you. Yep, that's better.
Okay. So I don't know if this is on the agenda tonight, but I just wanted to give voice to how proud I am to have Sean Edwards as the principal of Canyon Crest Elementary School. When they came on as principal, my child was really struggling, and under their leadership, I have seen so many positive changes in an already amazing school. We have excellent teachers, we have excellent staff, and Sean Edwards has added to that in immeasurable ways. Just at the very beginning of school each year, they have this amazing balloon arch, just cheering for the kids, so excited to see them. I have noticed more respect in the classrooms. I have noticed the students being able to be more kind, reach out to other people, bring other people in, make more friends. My daughter specifically struggled to eat lunch in the lunchroom because she had some issues, and Dr. Edwards was able to help her navigate that in just the most kind way. And that meant a lot to me as a parent, to be listened to. I have had to come in and talk with them about a few different things that I just kind of had questions about, and just the compassion, the kindness, the time that Dr. Edwards took to listen to me and to make a plan. My child also has some learning issues, and so I've had to meet with Dr. Edwards and some of the other specialists at the school, and I just want you to know, as a parent, it means so much to me that we have him at that school. We just couldn't have asked for a better candidate. I've worked with him when he was at Timpview and was astounded at what he was able to do. But he was a vice principal there. And so, he wasn't able to do all of the things that he envisioned for the school. And this is an amazing fit for him. I've never heard a bad word about him. I just think he's a really, really good principal, and I think we should all appreciate that we have him and be really excited for that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Camille. We appreciate you being here and being willing to give input to the board tonight. Okay. If there's anyone else who'd like to give input to the board, we have, now's the time. Are you wanting to give input?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Go ahead and take a minute to fill it out, and we'll be happy to wait for you.
Should maybe Wendy give her report while we're in?
Do you want to maybe do your superintendent report right now while we're waiting, or would you rather just the last two?
Just wait. I'll just wait.
Okay.
Promise I'll be fast. That's fine. Approve the student travel that we've already talked about.
That's fine.
It's good for us.
I forget, but we don't have like a school report. I usually do. Do they have a school report?
No, they are doing Boston. No, sure. Schools are doing Boston this year. No, they didn't get the paperwork in time, so
Okay,
it'll be
never
on
mind.
September.
Yeah,
That's what it should have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks
They called me yesterday. I put it on, and I was like, no, it's in September.
For those just entering the meeting, we're in the middle of our public input portion of our business meeting tonight. And if you are interested in giving public input to the board, we would just need you to fill out a form in its entirety and give that form over here to our secretary, Bonnie Totkus, so that she can get it to us and so that we can give you an opportunity to address the board. Okay, we'll now hear from Katie Ryan.
Sorry.
What was that?
Rue.
Rue, oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, my handwriting's not so great.
Oh,
so.
no, I apologize. Katie Rue, thank you for being here. Same thing, if you wouldn't mind stating your name and the elementary school boundary within which you live.
Sure. My name's Katie Rue, and I'm actually in the Rock Canyon elementary boundary, but we go to Canyon Crest for the dual immersion program.
Okay, go ahead. I don't think the timer's on up, but you could go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to address the board too, in support of Dr. Edwards, like Camille. We feel so privileged to have him as a principal, and as Camille mentioned, he is the ultimate example of compassion and kindness, which I think we really need to teach our kids, and so he's a great model for that. I have kids with special needs too, and he'll take the time, and sometimes my son will get into trouble at school, not behave, but Dr. Edwards takes the time to really sit with him and talk to him and see how things are going, and he always is very responsive and very loving. And an example is when he was graduating, Benji just graduated, my son, one of my children, and I said, well, you know, Benji's ready to go to middle school, and he said, Benji does really well. He'll do really well with independence. A nice way of saying, you know, sometimes he would struggle, but he saw Benji's potential. So I just wanted to say that we love Dr. Edwards, and I think he's adds to our community, and it's really needed in this time where we need to learn to love people and show compassion. And we also have that diversity perspective too, where he's very keenly aware of students who maybe feel left out or, you know, have challenges. So I really appreciate that too. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. We appreciate you being here. We'll now hear from Alessandro Rossborough. If you would please state your name and the elementary boundary within which you live, and then you'll be given 3 minutes.
Okay, great. I'm Alessandro Rossborough, and I'm in the Edgemont Elementary boundary, 3338 North, 175 East here in Provo, Utah. I wanted to talk as well about Dr. Edwards. I'll call him Sean. I've had a lot of interaction with him, with my children, especially at Timpview High School, as well as talking to him as a principal at Canyon Crest, and I have appreciated how professional he is. I have appreciated his love for students, his love as an educator. When I've talked to him, we talk about all kinds of issues in education. I have a PhD in education, work at BYU, and so we talk a lot of things about minority issues, English learners. He's well versed in these areas. He's extremely careful and thoughtful about how to support marginalized and diverse populations. And I find that his interests, his comments are very insightful, and overall, beyond even just the credentials and the carefulness and the professionalness that he has a wonderful, loving heart that you can feel and you can sense about him. And so he has my support fully, and the friends and people that I know, when we talk about Dr. Edwards, he's an amazing person that we desperately need. I would also like to thank this school board as well. I'm aware of a lot of different school boards in the state of Utah, and I work with them at times and have to do research at times in different places. Provo School Board has a very open door, friendly, trusting way of looking at research. And I appreciate the school board too, that looks at marginalized populations in kind and careful, considerate ways, as maybe compared to other school districts that might get caught up in certain political rhetoric that's very volatile these days. And I find, sorry to have to compare, but, and I'm not using any names, but Provo School District to be extremely respectful and careful and considerate in many ways. So I've appreciated that about the school board, and I think that Sean Edwards is a wonderful example of what you're trying to accomplish. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. We will now hear from Nicolo Rossborough.
Hello, I'm Nicola Rossborough. I also live in the Edgemont School District. And I also came to talk about Sean Edwards. I was one of his students when he was the vice principal at Timpview. In my senior year, I had a lot of personal issues that were affecting my schoolwork, my athletics and other extracurriculars, and my attendance. And at the time, there was a fairly strict attendance policy for sports, and I was not meeting it because of some of my personal issues. And when I talked to, and so I was going in and I was talking to Sean Edwards to figure out how I could keep going to school, what steps I could take, what help I could get. And I remember we talked a lot about administration things and scheduling things and other stuff like that. And at the end, I was a little terrified that I wasn't going to be able to participate in soccer because that was a very important part of my life because I wasn't meeting the attendance policy. And when I brought it up, it was instantaneous that he's like, you're not making it to school because you're being careless. It's some very serious issues, and refusing soccer to you would only hurt those issues more. And in all of my time in the public school districts, I've never met anyone who made me feel understood and seen, and who was as compassionate to me as an individual as Sean Edwards. There were a couple English teachers that gave him a run for his money, but he was at the top. And so I just wanted to say some nice things about him. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more forms. Is there anyone else who's interested in giving public input tonight? Okay, thank you so much for being here and for all of your words that you said tonight. We appreciate it so much. And for you taking the time to come address us. So thank you so much for being here. We will go ahead and close that portion of our meeting. And before we move on to our business items, we have some items from our study session that still need discussion before we can vote on them. So we're going to go ahead and head back to our study session agenda, starting with item F. We're going to go item F through item L. And then we will come back to our business meeting portion. So most of this is policy review. And I think, Wendy, if you want to just go ahead and go down the list, and we'll just go one at a time. We'll go
There
from
we
there.
go. I'm going to have Doug come forward because our first policy is tied to sensitive materials. You guys want to, is it up? Nope, not yet. There you go. So this is policy 4022. We went over it in our last board meeting, and we just wanted to provide some clarification and information. Jennifer submitted some questions, and I've asked Doug to answer some of those. I did want to mention that in line 156, we now have a link when individuals want to have a review of a material that they believe fits that sensitive materials requirement. There is a link to that they fill out, and so that is now live. So as soon as, if this policy does get adopted, then that would be a live link for parents to utilize. And our points of contact will be the directors of teaching and learning, probably more specifically Doug Finch, because I'm guessing that most of these sensitive materials requests are going to be secondary related. Also, we did have a request for clarification in our last board meeting about how we discard these materials, and Doug did a great job of putting this actually into very much into the policy very explicitly. So lines 275 through 279, that we're utilizing our surplus procedures if district funds were used to purchase the materials, and that there would be administrative direction to remove the materials if personal funds were used by the teacher. And then lines 285 to 287, in light of some other recent things that have happened in the news, that items removed cannot be offered to students, sold to students, or to any other entity, that they do have to follow these specific procedures. And that we have added the reporting process to ensure that the materials are removed, so that there is a follow-through that happens from the district out to the schools, where a principal is verifying that those materials have been removed, both at, if they are in our libraries, that they've been removed from libraries, and that also they're not in any classrooms. So that has been refined as well. So we had some questions that came up. I'm going to let Doug address those. Do you have those questions in front of you, Doug, or do you want Jennifer to ask those specifically?
No, I do have them here in front of me. I think the first one is regarding the numbers of appeals that someone can make to have materials reviewed. Prior to this updating of this House bill and educational rule, there was an allowance for us to have a limitation that someone could use up to 3 requests, whether they were successful requests or not. I think we embodied that into what our existing 4022, I think it's 4021, I think maybe, that talks about the library materials. It's hard to find it in the language there, but when you do go to the form, it just says that right on top of the form, that you have a limitation. This House bill, as well as the legislative rule, contains explicit language that says that there is a limitation, but it takes a limitation of unsuccessful requests. So in other words, it's 3, but it takes 3 unsuccessful requests to be considered someone who's not eligible to offer another request for another year. It does open many more requests, possibly. I guess as a anecdote to that, in the time that we've had this policy in place in its current form for 2 years, I think we've had only 1 request come through the Provo City School District formally. So the idea that someone's going to use up all their 3 requests, I guess we'll have to see, but it does say explicitly in the law also that it kind of puts some limitations on a Board of Education to make it a more stringent rule than the one that was outlined by the state legislature. There's some real directive work there that says the Board of Education can't restrain boards or panels of parents or others from being able to make these requests. So in other words, I think there's a real intent for it to be pretty open-ended for individuals, as long as they don't use 3 unsuccessful attempts in 1 year, and then that would then disallow them for another school year to be able to put more complaints forward. I think that's the one. Is there anything additional to that, Jennifer, that you wanted to discuss?
I think the other question was, does the board need to read the text?
Yes, and that's the next guideline that I think that
they're appealing that.
Because of the constraints that are here about not being able to look at a work in its whole and deciding there's enough merit in this book to make it okay that there is a passage or an excerpt that's inappropriate, particularly under the objectively sensitive materials standard. Many of these appeals that could come to the Board of Education, it wouldn't require you to read the whole material. It might just be reading the sample material. And we're not just talking about books too. Let's make sure we understand that the definition that was provided to us around instructional materials are websites, presentations, assemblies. It could be any sort of a content. So it becomes problematic to put explicit wording in there saying that you need to read a whole text or so forth. I'm sure the Board of Education would want to, if they're going to sound in on a decision to look to overrule the committee that was put together, made the decision, that you would, in good faith, do the due diligence to read and review the material. But as far as explicitly how to put that in the language, it wasn't required in the state statute, so we just kind of left that as probably a best professional practice that you would naturally do.
Right, okay. Just want to make sure we aren't missing something.
I appreciated also the feedback that anyone who reads my stuff knows that I sometimes small little things are missing, and I appreciated that feedback. And so that thorough work for about a small handful of using the right conjunctions and those sorts of things was appreciated. So thanks so much, Jennifer. Those will be in the final copy. Because there can be sometimes it seems innocent enough, but there was a place or two, Jennifer, you pointed out to me where it kind of construes a little bit the meaning here, which I want to kind of add as one of the last pieces of the feedback you gave. There is some guidance here, and we're benefiting from individuals who are having experience in implementing this. Does this law outlaw students from having possession of one of these books of their own accord? That say they went to a public library, or they went to a bookstore, or ordered on Amazon themselves, and they happen to be reading this in their own, discretionary time at school, in the hallway, or in a reading corner, so forth. This law does not step into those rights to say what a student and a family determines that their children possess of their own accord, right? But I did try and put some guidelines there. From USB came that guideline. You'll see it there at the end of saying, let's try to make sure that we're properly instructing our students to utilize appropriate materials for the assignments. And then there's that little clarification underneath that talks about what it is under the law that won't be trying to patrol or prevent from happening. So there's all kinds of scenarios here that I'm sure we'll still run into. It's the best of what I think we've had from some thoughtful feedback. This is a second reading on this procedure, as well as USB's provide us a lot of great information so that hopefully we're prepared to implement this right away once it's approved. So are there any additional pieces of feedback or questions you'd have for clarification?
I did, but it's not really specific to this one, but for all of them, Wendy, I got a question of, will the principals be given training on all of these policies, and then in turn the principals will then need to train the teachers and employees on all of them?
That's such a great question. Yes and yes. So we've already talked about that we would create probably little video segments that then we can push out to principals that they could use in a faculty meeting to support their teachers with it. So as they're meeting with them, then they would have that information in place. But yeah, we recognize this is a heavy lift for principals as well as for teachers.
This is a lot of
It's
policy.
a lot. It is a lot.
I just wanted to compliment you and thank you for the work you've done with this, because you've been so thorough. I know you guys have put a lot of time and thought and care into making sure that we're thoughtful about why we need this policy and how to be mindful and make sure that we comply with law, and also that we encourage best materials for our students. The last week I've had a couple of community members sit with me, and they were concerned around materials, and as I was able to show them this draft policy, it just felt better to them to know that we were vigilant and thoughtful and putting all of this into place so clearly. And I also just assured them that, we are all equally concerned about the well-being of our kids, and we would never put them in harm's way, and we would not want a teacher to put them in harm's way. And then this just backed it right up and made it really clear. And so thank you for that. That was a great tool to have. And also just want the community to know that what I really love about our teachers in our schools are how careful we are initially selecting a range of thoughtful materials to help our kids think critically and be able to encounter and discuss different perspectives in appropriate ways. And I just love the work that goes in on the front end of making sure that we're choosing wisely. And then I'm grateful that we have kind of very clear guardrails in place to back that up. But thank you, and thank you to all of our educators here in Provo. I just think they do a remarkable job with this.
Thank you, Lisa. So again, pending your approval, we'll work to get this up and functioning, hopefully by week's end, on our webpage, including the request for review form. Thank you.
Sorry, before we go any further, I want to be very clear that this is not an invitation for anyone to leave, but I do want our audience members to know that we don't expect you to stay through the business if you don't feel like you want to sit through it.
It's super fun.
It's great. We would actually love it if you were here, but I just don't want you to feel bad if you feel like you're ready to get up and leave. Yeah. Please don't feel bad about that. But if you want to stay and listen to our policy discussion, we would love to have you here. So I just wanted to address that outright, and thank you for being here.
I just want to also thank Doug. He put in a lot of time into this policy and just a lot of thought. And he is very thoughtful as he goes through each piece of this to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's in all of this. So we do have Jason Garrison here if we have questions, but I think the survey is one I can handle, but all the school safety stuff I'm gonna ask you to come forward. So this will be our second reading on, well, let me go back to this one. Our recommendation is that we go ahead and approve policy 4022 when you're ready to do that, and that we will then add references to 4022 in policies 4020, which governs our adoption of curriculum materials, and 4021, which governs library materials specifically. Now we've added this, so it's including all instructional materials. So policy 7140 is about surveys and data collection. I was really appreciative of our student board members last time who kind of showed us that we had some issues with some of our definitions and like what kind of unintended consequences are actually happening as a result of this policy. So this is a revision to our current policy to align with state law, requiring all non-academic surveys to be opt-in. Parent permission being required, parents can preview survey items. But some of our updates, we discovered last time that we did not have that consent on our registration page. I want to thank our Student Services Department, Jason Garrison and Carrie Rollins, for working with our IT department to get this up and running. It is now on our page, and it has all of the individual questions. I think Jennifer brought up that you are just approving all of them point blank, and so we've gone through and added those, so they should be a separate approval on each thing. And then in this particular policy, lines 26 through 35, those clarify that surveys that inquire about that specific listed information do have to have district leadership approval and parental consent. So to Monica's question about, like, if I'm on student government and we want to do a survey about, you know, what activities kids prefer, things, that would just require the student government advisor and the principal approval, but that's not falling under this requirement because of the types of questions that it's asking.
Can I ask a question about that?
Please.
And it wouldn't require parent opt-in,
No,
correct?
it would not.
Okay, thank you.
No, it would not. And so we just put in there too that the surveys cannot ask those specific types of questions. So it's about political affiliation, income, gender identity. It lists it very, very carefully. Any kind of psychological metric, types of social and emotional kinds of questions, they cannot be asked without parental approval, district approval, and the parent does have to opt in. So those were the changes that we made. We followed the model policy that was given by the state, but I think we needed to have those specific, we needed to move up that list of what constitutes needing that district approval, because it started to feel like every single type of survey needed district approval. And we did want teachers to be able to survey students about what worked well for you in this unit. Did you like this activity? Like that's action-based research that's very helpful to teachers, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't blocking that. So our recommendation is to approve this policy with the accompanying procedures and changes reflected in this discussion, unless you have further questions or ideas for how to create greater clarification.
I have a comment that's related but unrelated, kind of like Terry's. Some of the policies that were attached had redlined through so we could see very clearly what had changed from the last time we saw them, and some of them didn't. And it is so much easier and helpful for me when I can see exactly what has changed from the last time. Is that something I can request?
Yeah, the reason this one doesn't have the red lines in it is because the current policy, we added stuff to it, so the additions were in blue. So anything that's stricken, we do still put in red. So I'm hoping that was the case.
But I mean, didn't we add some things from our first reading? Did we change some things from first reading?
Yes, so you're talking about from the, I just do it from the original.
Anything, well, not necessarily, just anything from the last time I read this policy. Because it's tricky for me when we're doing this many policies to remember exactly what I saw last time versus this time. So anything that's changed, like from the last time we've seen it, would be helpful, so I don't have to try to compare and. Is that a huge ask?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. I want to be mindful of your time, and if it's a huge pain,
It's not.
then I can figure it out, but.
That's great.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm curious, the title of surveys and data collection, do we have a separate policy? I should know this, so I'm just exposing ignorance. But do we have a separate policy around data privacy and
Yes.
all of that? Okay, so, and did we need to refer to that other policy at all in this, or would it be helpful? Or no, not really?
No.
Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, great. That's it. Just want to make sure.
It's referenced in the actual place where it talks about data collection. It does state that our data collection policies on FERPA does have to be followed as a
Okay.
result of that. So that is written into this policy.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, thanks.
Policy 1600 is the Board of Education Code of Ethics. This kind of came up as a result of doing policy 1630 last time. Gina worked on this particular policy. We eliminated the resolution at the beginning, and line 30 references the newly adopted policy 1630 about the conflicts of interest. We wanted to make sure these were consistent. And then lines 68 to 69, we eliminated the reference to affirmative action and simply state that civil rights will be upheld. So those are the changes that we have there. This is a first reading of the policy, so we can put this out on the website to receive public comment and then approve in the September meeting, or our recommendation is we just go ahead and approve it. But any questions on this particular policy?
Good job, Gina.
Does anybody feel like we need to have this
say it,
out for a
don't do
second
it.
reading, or are we okay to go ahead and vote on this tonight?
I think we're okay. I have one question, though, on line 23, 24, when it does talk about seek true facts and then free from personal or partisan bias, which I know is ideal, but I do think that given same facts, our own personal opinion, we are going to interpret those facts differently. But I guess this is just, and I don't know, that for me, I'm like, I think that's interesting it says that, free from personal partisan bias, because we are all biased, even when we're given the same facts sometimes.
That is true. It comes from the state policy, so
that
we're
what it
just,
is?
so, but if, I would urge us that should be the goal, to try to
Sure.
say, I can at least think about things from a different perspective in this process. Like, I know what my thoughts are, but I am at least trying to understand what a person who thinks differently might believe about
Right.
something. Do you feel like we need to change the language of that to capture that more fully?
Can we? Isn't this?
No, I mean, I don't, maybe I'm just bringing it up because it's a thought that I had, but I'm good at that, just bringing things up but not having a solution, so.
I think I agree. As I read through it, I was thinking along the same lines. I think, though, as the policy, I think, in my opinion, it's okay as it is, but I do think that what you and Wendy have said, like, I think it's a good thing for us to aspire
Right,
to, and it's a good thing to put in there, even though it would be very difficult sometimes to achieve. But I feel like we do a pretty good job of that. Our current board, as I was encouraged by our community member who pointed out that, has seen that, so that's good.
Sounds good. I think we can vote.
I think we're okay to vote on this one. Is everyone okay to go ahead and vote on this tonight? Okay, we'll go ahead and put this one up for a vote then. Is it on the, it's on the,
Yeah, it is.
On the thing, I'm pretty sure it
we're on
is.
1600, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's on here, so we're good to go ahead and vote on that.
All right, Jason Garrison, come forward. Here we go. Several of these are tied to House Bill 84 and different requirements and updates to procedures. And so they're just additions that are happening to procedures that we already have in place to make sure we're completely in alignment. And we've just tried to highlight a few of these. So I'll talk a little bit about it, and then Jason's here to answer questions because he's on our state task force and knows a lot about this, probably more than he even wants to know about it. But so the student threat assessment, the procedure, our purpose is to prevent violence and to resolve conflicts. There is a multidisciplinary team that is utilized to complete the assessment. They use a research-based tool. It is known as the Comprehensive Threat Assessment Tool Guide, or CSTAG. And there's extensive training that goes on for administering that particular tool, and then they determine the level of threat, whether it's a transient threat, it's a substantive threat, it's an immediate threat, and then they take action based on what that CSTAG reveals. And it isn't just violence potentially to others, it's also self-harm. A CSTAG can be utilized to help determine that as well. Parents are informed and have to be part of that process when the threat assessment is needed and why the assessment is needed. Sometimes when we have a situation where a student is being excluded from school, we cannot readmit them into school until a threat assessment has been conducted to ensure that they don't pose a threat to the rest of the school community. This procedure also talks about utilizing the Safe UT app and other reporting mechanisms for threats. I think that's been a concern that we've had, is how well are we utilizing the Safe UT app, and so that has to be an emphasis moving forward this year. Parents are interviewed as part of the student threat assessment, but they're not part of the team that determines the threat level. So, and then it outlines the specific roles for those team members. And then the school district is responsible for creating a plan to mitigate the risk and to provide supports and interventions. So it is not a tool that's used to just exclude the student and then they're on their own. It's about, this is what we're trying to do to help keep the schools safe, to keep our community safe, and also to help support this student, creating protections for the victim as well as due process rights of this individual. So, what else do you want to add, Jason, on that one? There's so much.
Probably the most important thing that I share with the administrators, that it's not punitive. It is information gathering and support providing. The main part of it is, to gather as much information as possible from all the entities that have knowledge about this student or the potential threat. But probably the second most important part is the final step, where it's a supervision and safety plan, a success plan for this student and for the school. So it's gathering the information and support providing is what it's doing. So it's not punitive in any means. So.
Any questions for Jason?
I did. Is this based on, I don't know if you know, is this based on a model policy?
Yes. Oh, yes, the state model policy, yes.
Okay. Because in the policy part, not the procedure part, it's very vague in the beginning.
Yes.
Is there any way we can put like a definition? This is what a student threat is. Because when I was reading it, I'm like, what is a student threat assessment? What? It's like the second paragraph before I'm like, oh, that's what that is.
We can certainly add that if that's something that you would like, or we can.
Because it's in the procedure, but it's not in the policy.
And I think a lot of times when I see the model procedures and policies that are coming from the state, they are purposefully making the policies more general, because the policies themselves have to be approved by boards of education. So then when they're making updates to legislation, it's just the procedure that's going in, so it becomes a notification to the board. And it really is more about the administrative pieces that are changing. And so that's why you see those definitions coming in, because those are the updated definitions that are coming in with legislation. We can push those into policy, but then that requires just a different level of approval. So that's why I think they're doing that. I'm seeing that more and more on the model policies. So,
could we just refer, because if it's in the procedure, could we just refer, like just say for definition, go to policy and then a hyperlink or something? Would that?
Yeah, defined in,
as defined in
or whatever.
procedure 1.
So you would say like the student threat assessment, comma, as defined in, and then the leak, best occurs in school climates of safety.
Is it because we think the definition itself of student threat assessment will change? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if that's not going to change, we could put some language around it.
It's so hard to predict what may or may not change.
You're right. No, you're right.
I think the question you need to ask is, putting it in policy or in procedure going to change how we do business in the district?
Right.
If it's really truly going to change how we do business in the district, then I think it warrants pushing it back to policy committee. If it really is, to be honest, this is something we've done for years. Like, this is not new. And so this is just really laying it out very clearly for parents in our community as to what we're doing to ensure that students are kept safe and how we're dealing with those threats in a very explicit way. It isn't something that we can't go back in and work on later. I worry a little bit about with the volume of policies of backlogging this for quite some time. That stresses me out a little bit.
I'm fine just referring to it. I think that makes sense. But this is just our first reading, right? So I guess if we have suggestions or whatnot, we can email them in and.
Sure.
Let's just,
I mean, we could
were
vote
gonna
on,
vote
we could vote on
maybe
it
on it.
tonight.
Right.
I mean, we have two options.
yep.
Do we have it on the
I
list?
think we should put it on the website and see if there is any comment, because this does involve someone's child.
The only concern that I have about that is there's no option to change it. So if someone says, I don't want a student threat assessment done on my child, if that student has done certain things to threaten the security of a school, it's not their choice. A threat assessment will have to be performed, and it is required in state law that we have to utilize this particular tool to do so. And so I worry that you're going to ask for that feedback, and then you're going to say, well, I'm sorry, this is state law anyway. I don't, the purpose of the feedback is when you're dealing with a policy where you really do want to have that input because it isn't something that's in legislation. This is something that's pretty clearly defined. So I don't, if that's what you would like, we're happy to do that. We'll get Caleb to put it on tomorrow.
I would prefer to vote on it. Just, I think we have I just think because it's legislation that we just.
Right. We've talked about adding just the line as defined in, policy 3235, procedure 1. And we can just, our motion can be with the discussed, language change or whatever, but the changes discussed in study session. And if everyone's okay with that change, I feel like that's okay to have. Does that feel satisfying enough to you, Terry, to add that in? And then.
Sure.
So we could do that. Whoever makes that motion could just make sure to add in the changes discussed in study session, and that could be the change.
Business meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Point.
You knew what I meant, right? Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that?
Policy 7225 is regarding our school resource officers. It's now a part of our policy according to the new legislation, and that we do have an interlocal agreement with Provo City's Police Department. I don't believe that contract has been updated as of yet.
That's correct.
Is that correct? So we have our last contract with pieces, but as soon as that contract gets updated, we can update you with that. Just some things to kind of keep in mind in this particular policy, that everything is about trying to build positive relationships between local law enforcement and students, and that there is strong communication that happens, that SROs should not be brought in to handle basic discipline issues. Like, administrators should not be shoveling that off onto an SRO, and that really it's when we're dealing with criminal activity or overall safety of a school that's when an SRO gets involved. What do you want to add to that, Jason?
I think just the one, after I looked at these slides earlier, the one thing I think it's probably interesting to know is that per this new law, we're required, it's been a couple of years old, but now it's more emphasized in these safety amendments, that the SROs and school administrators go to a mutual training together. We go to a training so they can learn what goes on in school administration and school life, and then we can also learn, so we're not crossing into each other's lanes, but yet we know how to support each other. So there's a required training that school administration and SROs attend together. So that's also part of the interlocal agreement and part of the policy as well.
I think the other thing that was interesting about this is there used to be, probably 10 years ago, kind of an idea that we were really being protective of sharing information. Like if a student had a disability, for example, with a school resource officer, you do want to share that information with police officers because it changes sometimes the ways in which they interact, and for them to understand and know no, this student gets escalated in this particular situation. And so recognizing that there are appropriate times to share that information becomes really important and is written very specifically into the interlocal agreement.
Okay. Any questions or comments on policy 7225?
I did. Does the police department know that we were required to create this policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they
I've talked to Chief Beebe as well as Sergeant Creston Bascom, who supervises our SROs. They're fully aware of it.
Okay. And do we need to have them provide input?
Well, when I showed them what I had drafted, they were in approval of that.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a sign off specifically from them, but they were fine with it.
And
it's very vague, like we talked about with some of the other policies.
Yeah. And then do we need to have Sergeant Sorensen or Sheriff Smith read this at all, do you think?
Oh, I don't think so. This is coming straight from the state legislation that says that we have to, as a district, have to have a statement of policy and then the interlocal agreement. So the policy says we will contract with our local police department and utilize the interlocal agreement. That's really what the policy refers to.
Okay.
And policy 3413, procedure 1, doesn't require your approval, but it does require you to be noticed about this, and that we're updating this procedure as a result of post-COVID conditions. Really kind of lays out when children should be kept at home and was created in collaboration with the Utah County Health Department. What do you want to add? I thought it gave some really nice clarifications.
Yeah, it's direct language from the Utah County Health Department, just like the previous version was. They did eliminate 1 or 2 of the communicable diseases that would keep a student home for more than 24 hours. But then they've also added COVID to be part of that as well. So if you're familiar with the old communicable disease procedure, this is going to be the updated minus 2 diseases that they've identified as you can come to school in less than 24 hours or not having a fever. So.
Any questions?
Questions on that one? Okay, moving right along.
Policy 6807, procedure 1, school facility emergency and safety procedures, just a revision of the procedure, including definitions that are updated according to House Bill 84. That requires us to have violence prevention and intervention strategies, and we changed our definitions to match actual positions within our district. So we had some old position titles there that we needed to update. And Safe UT being added as part of the crisis response protocols, and also just a part of education, like helping students see that as an option. So what else do you want to add about that particular procedure?
It just aligns and reflects exactly what the state code now says. So it's copy and paste, to be honest, in red on your papers. So.
Any questions on that one? Okay.
I did. So I can't find it now, but I think the policy used to be on board docs and now it's not. Anyway.
It's there now. This one that we're talking about, 6807?
Yeah. Oh, wait, here it is. Okay, lines 55 through 65. It says the elementary and secondary school drill schedule. Do we need to list all the kinds of drills that are required that need to happen?
I haven't seen anything where we list them all. We do provide all the school administrators with a list that the state recommends. So the state level, the fire marshal, those at the chief, the Department of Safety, they provide us a month by month of what we should be doing for a drill. So we provide that to all the administrators during our opening meetings. And then they check in with us on a monthly basis with the e-admins to let us know those drills have been performed. But as far as providing it for the procedure, it hasn't been put in there.
Mostly because sometimes those drills could change the way in which they do it. So, and then we have to report that to the state, and then they give us kind of like a security certificate based on each site as to whether or not we managed that appropriately.
And then at the very end, it says amended in 2023.
Well, we update that, so once the policy goes in, then and once we update the procedure, then we change the dates on those.
Okay.
That's a
Yeah,
great
I'm like,
question.
it's 24.
Yeah.
Just in case everybody forgot.
In case we forgot what year it was.
Right?
It's almost 25.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the, down in section 11, prevention and intervention, it talks about a school comprehensive violence prevention and intervention strategies and lessons on anger management, conflict resolution, et cetera. I'm just curious to know about the adoption of that curriculum, and is that something that's being provided to us from the state? Is that something we are selecting as a district or developing internally?
So as of now, some of our to meet the compliance part of that requirement, we're doing a lot of the what do you call it, the second step.
Second step, okay.
We're doing empathy skills training, compassion skills trainings with our social workers in the schools. They're doing that. They have some established curriculums. Some of the schools are doing, most elementary school, all the elementary schools are doing second step. And then the secondaries are doing a couple of different other variations of it. As far as the violence or the violence control, the prevention, we do have what we refer to with our what's called the prepare model, and it's how to respond in a active emergency or crisis or a violent situation. So that's just small things that we're doing right now.
And if a parent were interested in, like, I want to know kind of what these lessons look like, have them call student services, is that right? Principal at their school, maybe?
Yep, or the principal.
Principal, okay, great.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. Those are great questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it for
I'll
policies.
be back next month with like 9 more.
Yeah, we got 90 more of these.
We have technically one last item on our study.
Can I ask about policies? I'm just curious, from state legislation, how many policies have we had to, I'm just like a number
77.
that we've had to change in this district so far?
Oh my gosh.
And you're still working on some?
Yeah, 77 total is how many they gave us in terms of model policies. So I don't know how many we've gone through so far. I feel like 17 or something. So we might be about a fourth of the way through.
Okay, I was just curious because it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's so many.
And we're almost on the next legislative
I
session,
know, that's why I'm trying to hurry.
and we're not even through.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, cheery note to.
We addressed that. We addressed that with the legislative members that came and had lunch with us. So I think we're trying to get the word out that it's a lot. So, all
Can I
right.
just say thanks to Jason for all your work on this, and I don't know who your team is, but thank you. This is, I mean, every time we have a policy meeting, there's probably 10 just for the safety committee, so thank you.
From one bill.
Yeah, it's true. It's all from one bill.
Okay, thank you so much. Item Q on our study session, I just propose that we table that until our next board meeting. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, great, perfect. Then let's go ahead and move on to our business items for the night. We'll start with business item A. It's a consideration to approve policy 4022, sensitive materials. Since we just discussed these, is everybody okay with skipping the summaries on them?
Yes, please.
Great. Okay, so is there a motion to approve policy 4022, sensitive materials?
Okay. I move that we approve policy 4022, sensitive materials, as discussed in business meeting.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hales. All in favor with, I guess, any further discussion or comments? Starting with Board Member Hall? No? Okay, great. All in favor with aye? Aye. Any opposed with nay? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Business item B, a consideration to approve policy 7140 on student surveys. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve policy 7140, student surveys, as discussed in business meeting.
Great, thank you so much. That was a motion made by Board Member Hales. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Boyce. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? That motion passes unanimously. Business item C, consideration to approve policy 1600, the board member code of ethics. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve policy 1600, board member code of ethics, as discussed in our business meeting.
Great, thank you so much. Motion made by board member Boyce. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by board member Van Wagenen. Any further discussion starting with board member Boyce if there's any? Okay, great. We'll go ahead and take a vote on that. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? That motion passes unanimously. Business item D, consideration to approve policy 3235, student threat assessment. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve policy 3235, student threat assessment, as discussed in business meeting.
With a change.
With the changes that we discussed in business meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Motion made by board member Hall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by board member Boyce. Any further discussion, starting with board member Hall, if there's any? Great. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Business item E, consideration to approve policy 7225, school resource officers. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve policy 7225, school resource officers, as discussed in business meeting.
Thank you so much. Motion made by board member Hales. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by board member Van Wagenen. Any further comments or discussion, starting with board member Hales, if there's any? None? Okay, all in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? That motion passes unanimously. Business item F, consideration to approve a large purchase request. This is for the boundary and feasibility study contract. We did not discuss this in business meeting. So do you want to go ahead and give a quick summary on this one, Wendy or Devin?
I can do it.
Okay.
So this is for our boundary and feasibility discussion, or contract that we've been talking about for the last few months to do a really big deep dive into the district programs, facilities, enrollment projections. And we did the RFP in June and evaluated the respondents and chose MGT as the company. The total cost of the contract is $142,836. Sorry, my computer died. I'm reading $838. And is inclusive of all of the items on there with those programmatic studies that we've asked for, boundary. It will also help with our long-term capital facilities plans as we're evaluating what the needs and what we need in the district overall, of whether we need to make any kind of adjustments in our boundaries or just making sure that all of our populations in our schools are not skewed in any one direction or another. So this has been an extensive search, and they have more experience in the state of Utah. They've done studies for Ogden, Wasatch, and Alpine school districts. They're also working with Tooele School District currently. And so this is who the board chose and who we have signed a contract with.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the large purchase request in the amount of $142,838 for the boundary and feasibility study contract.
Thank you so much. Motion made by board member Van Wagenen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by board member Hales. Any further discussion or comments, starting with board member Van Wagenen, if there's any? No? I just want to say I'm actually really excited for this. This is going to be a huge, like now that we have our strategic plan almost done and we've got that as a guiding star, this will be like kind of a good second piece to that, to really helping the direction our district goes in. I'm excited for this. So
yeah,
okay.
It needs to be done, right?
It needs to be done.
Like
yeah.
2006.
Yeah.
Right.
It's been plenty of time, so this will be great. All right. Is there? Actually, we already got the motion. Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Business item G, consideration to approve a large purchase request. This is our nursing contract with Utah County Board of Health. And Devin, if you'd give a quick summary.
Yep. So this is just our contract that we've got with the Department of Health for the nursing services in our schools. It is that the amount is $900,000 for this year with adjustments made at the end of the year. The main focus of the purpose for bringing it on the discussion was to see if we wanted to evaluate other options. But this year, the contract is set and our nurses are working.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the large purchase request in the amount of $900,000 for the nursing contract with the Utah County Board of Health.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Boyce. Any further comments or discussion, starting with Board Member Hall, if there's any?
I just wanted to echo what Business Administrator Daly said, was that we would like to see other options possible for next year.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? That motion passes unanimously. Business item H, consideration to approve student travel. This is Centennial Middle School to Boston. And who wants to summarize that?
So Centennial Middle School is going to be going to Boston for their summer travel instead of Washington, D.C. Just in case there are people listening, Shoreline's proposal will come in on the September meeting. So both of them are trying to get to Boston this year rather than Washington, D.C.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the Centennial Middle School trip to Boston as discussed in our business meeting.
This one was study session.
Study session.
Motion made by Board Member Boyce. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hales. Any further comments or discussion, starting with Board Member Boyce, if there's any? No. Okay, all in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? That motion passes unanimously. Business item I, it's a consideration to approve student travel, and this is Centennial Middle School Theater Program to New York City.
So Centennial Middle School is invited to audition to perform at the Lincoln Center. They would have 25 students in their theater and choir programs that would be auditioning for this opportunity. In New York, they would be missing 3 days of school. That is acceptable within our policy, and they are asking for approval for that. I do think we also talked about refining our middle school travel policy as well. So.
Great, thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the Centennial Middle School theater trip to New York City as discussed in study session.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hales. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Boyce. Any further comments or discussion, starting with Board Member Hales, if there's any?
I just want to reiterate that I think we need to revisit this policy. I'm not saying we need to change it, but I do think we need to revisit it.
Yeah, I agree.
Completely agree. Okay, great. No, just kidding. Not any further comments. We are going to vote. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? All right, that motion passes unanimously. All right, we did it. We're on to the superintendent's report.
All I wanted to let you know was that today seniors received letters from the University of Utah if they are being admitted because they have met all of the requirements and for admission into the University of Utah. So I just think it's really remarkable to be in Provo where there is such a great collaboration with UVU, with BYU, with the University of Utah, with really just establishing lots of different options for kids and getting kids aligned with the right programs, with MTech, whatever that is. We're trying to expand those opportunities and just appreciate everybody who helps to make that happen.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? I had heard that if they get accepted into the University of Utah, they're automatically into any other state university.
Yeah, pretty much if they apply, so once they get that letter, they apply into any other university, they know that they'll get in Utah. That is a public institution because the University of Utah is the most restrictive in terms of their admission requirements.
That's really neat. Okay, thank you so much. That's awesome. All right, is there a motion to adjourn our business meeting?
I move that we adjourn the business meeting.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hales. We are adjourned.
I think an hour for as much as there was, that was